Fool us once by having a bad ending? Shame on Dexter. Fool us twice by having another bad ending? Shame on Dexter, again, also. But is Dexter Original Sin going to shame us once more? I don't know, I feel like maybe not. I'm a bit optimistic after this first episode. I guess we're gonna find out. Anyway, so yeah, Original Sin, episode 1, called And in the Beginning. This video is gonna be kind of a review, but also a bit of a recap explaining everything that goes on in this episode and saying what I think about all of those things. It's about as simple as that. I did go into this pretty skeptically, I have to say. Also very excited because I am a bit of a fanboy, I have to admit. And more Dexter is more Dexter. It's as simple as that. So I'm still gonna get excited, I'm still gonna get nostalgic, and I'm gonna be fanboying all over the place, pointing at the screen at the little references like DiCaprio himself. I'm a bit of a sucker for Dexter, I admit. And just by the way, with my opening right there, I'm exaggerating a little bit. I don't hate either of the endings as much as most people do. I think they're kind of fine. But also, neither of them are the endings anymore, so who cares? Dexter's alive! He's just suddenly alive again! Woo! It makes no sense and I love it. Resurrection, here we come. But for now, Original Sin is all we have, as Dexter's life flashes before his eyes while he's on the brink of death, following the events of New Blood. You know, the events of his death, which were clearly the intentions of New Blood when they were making it. It's clear that they were killing him off. That is what they were definitively doing. He was dead, but now he's not. And I love it. It doesn't make sense. And I hope that in continuing seasons and series and whatever they decide to do, they just keep killing him off and bringing him back somehow. I hope at some point they cryogenically freeze him, smash him to bits, and somehow explain that, nah, he's fine. He just comes back the next episode as a bit of a challenge, you know, just see how far you can take it. I'd be all here for it. Anyway, on with the episode. So, going right back to the very start of this episode, following at least that little teaser of Dexter Resurrection, which is part of this season, I suppose, but, you know, kind of not really. It's just confirming to us fans that hold tight, Dexter's going to be alive later. For now, we're just going into this prequel. Anyway, the prequel opens then with Dexter's literal birth. Original Sin is a very literal title, I guess. The show then tells us through his mum looking at the camera that she's gonna name him Dexter, something that we would have never known otherwise. It's just some of the pitfalls that prequels fall into, where it's like, how many details do we want to know? Every single thing ever, apparently. We had to be told that she was gonna name him Dexter and that he was born. We wouldn't have known that otherwise. Anyway, what follows then is a brand new intro with young Dexter Man played by Patrick Gibson with the classic nostalgic music, and I am obsessed with it. They even have the little ding moment right at the end before the episode starts where he looks at the camera, and I'm just like, I'm in love. It gets me so hyped up. I'm excited to see the rest, even if this does overall feel like a very unnecessary prequel that I don't really think that we need. I'm still kind of super keen for all this shit and seeing where it's gonna go. And I do think that this first episode is a promising start. I'm excited for what's to come. It has the classic dark sense of humor, all while balancing the cheesy but horror-esque themes to do with killing, as well as the melancholic moments of Dexter's voiceover narration summing everything up. It's kind of got it all. Even Michael C. Hall's voice doesn't have him in the flesh, but it does at least have his voice. Michael C. Hall's inner monologue is really the thing that brings the entire series into focus and allows the fans to know that this is being made in good faith, and it's not just that cash grab bullshit that I was, you know, kind of worried about. Hopefully, anyway. Like, again, this is just the first episode, but I'm very happy that he is at least involved in some way. And I do think that he brings a lot of character, even just with his voice. You know, it does a lot or so little. Something that I was thinking about going into this episode was the ending of this series, how it's all going to play out. And I know it's only just begun, but I'm kind of thinking that the whole series, the trajectory of it, is going to be all about Harry's death as he tragically decides to commit suicide. I'm very curious to see how that actually plays out in real time on screen, as this was one of the details I always felt was a little bit blurred in the original series. We knew the bigger details, like that he did kill himself after witnessing Dexter's murderous behavior, but it's something that we never really learned about that much in detail, and I think it could prove to be extremely compelling as we watch Christian Slater's character deal with basically what he's created in Dexter. Now, I will say when it comes to the cast of this whole show so far, it does feel a bit like everybody's kind of wearing Halloween costumes of the original cast, you know? Kind of feels like kids in adult costumes or something like that. But to be fair, they are pretty spot on impressions, as we saw with the Masuka laughs and with the actor who plays Angel Batista named James Martinez, who looks fucking identical to him somehow, at least in his mannerisms. I'm very impressed by that. Of course, Dexter himself is good too, which is obviously the one that really matters, the one that this whole thing hinges on. There is a slight disconnect between between hearing Michael C. Hall's voice and seeing this new guy's face though. Not bad enough to ruin it, but it's just that I'm so familiar with MCH in the role, and so I kind of feel like, you know, I see his face when I'm listening to him talk, and it's like, who's this other guy kind of getting in our way? However, Gibson does embody his best version of Michael C. Hall, nailing the often monotone and emotionless voice, but also kind of like this cheeky attitude at times too. Like when it comes to his inside jokes with us, the audience, about his killing. There's even a moment in this episode where he smiles at the camera, breaking the fourth wall as he sort of like holds up a knife and gives us that killer charm, which I thought was kind of a bold choice, and I really liked it. There's then another early scene in the episode between Dexter and Harry, and it's a conversation between them at the dinner table where they basically explain to us, the audience, that he and Harry's original plan and reason for him pursuing a medical profession at first was to satisfy his dark passenger urges. By cutting into dead bodies, they were kind of hoping that that would satisfy him and deter him from having to actually kill people, but alas, as we know, that is not where Dexter is meant to be. And I found that really interesting. I thought it was another little detail there where I don't remember particularly if they mentioned that in the original series, but just seeing these little plans and decisions and stuff actually play out in front of us feels strangely authentic. You know, it feels like there's a very huge possibility that things like this could feel really contrived as they just jump in front of the camera and tell us things that we already know and all this kind of stuff. But little moments like this actually give us more context into Dexter, who already is a character that, if you've watched the original series, we already know very well, but somehow they're digging even deeper into the character. And if you actually think about that from a writing perspective, that's fairly impressive. I mean, I know that this isn't exactly the biggest masterpiece scene or whatever. This is still just the first episode. Not a lot has happened yet or anything like that. There's still many directions that this thing could go, but things like this give me a bit of optimism. I am a bit weary about like overpraising it, being a big fanboy of Dexter and stuff. I am aware that I'm probably going to be like, whoa, this was awesome, this was so good and whatever. Whereas other people who aren't as big fans might be like, well, that part doesn't make sense. And I can see this being something that continues along throughout this series. It definitely happened with New Blood, where by the end of that series, everybody else had kind of decided that they just hated it, but I was left there looking like a fool as I still praised pretty much everything. And, you know, that could happen again, but there is a bit of like bulletproofness or whatever to this series since it is a prequel. There's only so many ways that it can really end, and so it's probably not gonna stab us in the back. That's just kind of a prediction, but, you know, in that way, I do feel like we're safe. There's then a moment in the episode that's a very strange cut as we watch Dexter at like this college recruitment gathering kind of thing, and Masuka is there like with the cops and stuff, and basically they have like a stall set up to get college kids to like, you know, try and get a job, pursue a career with them or whatever. But there's this cut where Masuka like does his classic laugh, you know, I can't really do it, but like we hear his laugh, but it cuts to his face and like he's not laughing, he's not even smiling. And I wonder if other people are going to pick up on that, or if I'm just imagining things. I don't know. I went back and watched it again, and I saw it again. He was audibly laughing, but like the actor was just like flat face, no emotion or anything. I found it very odd and entertaining, and I loved it. Maybe it just adds to the charm, I don't know. But the importance of this scene anyway is basically this is the infancy of Dexter realizing that he has an interest in like crime scenes as he sees the sort of, I don't know what you would call it, advertising of the Miami Metro board that they have up of like actual crime scenes and stuff. I wonder if like that's even allowed in real life or anything. But either way, Dexter sees some dead body things, connects some things, and explains to Masuka, I think the two pictures here are like related in some way. It's the same killer or whatever. And, you know, it's something that they hadn't picked up on. It just shows that Dexter has this inherent thing within him where he kind of just knows murder somehow, you know, he knows blood. He has a thing for blood or whatever. And it's kind of like this interesting little thing showing us, you know, planting the seeds of how Dexter gets to where he gets to with his career and everything like that. Back at home, Dexter is looking at like a porn magazine, but what he's really looking at it for is to read the articles. I swear, I only look at it for the articles or whatever, right? But he's looking at this article of Ted Bundy, who I guess is like his hero or whatever. But it's then to explain to us that Dexter is a 20-year-old virgin at this point, which does make sense since he is first portrayed as an asexual, at least in the first season of the original series. But he's also a virgin for murder. He's yet to make his first kill by the opening of this episode, but much like the first episode of New Blood, it all leads to a climactic opening episode where Dexter gets back to his old ways, metaphorically speaking, where we know he's going to kill somebody by the end of this first episode. You know, it's kind of a given. Anyway, it's here where I should probably talk about Molly Brown, the actor who plays Deborah, who was kind of an easy character to get right. That's not exactly a slight on this actor or anything, but I would say that Deb becomes a complex character throughout the series, but in this prequel, I feel like it doesn't require too much character development. Apart from being openly crass by swearing and shit, and, you know, we see that she's got a, like, fun, bitchy attitude, and I think that that's kind of all that she needs to be for now. I don't think that she needs to have this really big arc, at least when it comes to any of the murders or anything like that. We kind of know, like, that's not who she is at this point in life, and I think that's fine, but I do fear that they're going to heavily involve her in the crime investigations, and she's going to, you know, somewhat just become, like, a cop right at the end of this series or something like that. And I feel like it's going to be too soon for it, and it's just going to be like, yeah, like, it's going to feel like it's the show feeling obligated to show Deborah becoming the character that we know. But I just feel like, she's a bit of a bitchy teenager right now, and that's fine, and I'm happy with that. You know what I mean? I think that's all it needs to be. And yeah, with that being said, I think she does a good job. Like, I don't think it's like, oh my god, it's performance of the year. She deserves a... What are the TV, like, Oscars? Is that an Emmy? Grammy is music. Anyway, I don't care. Anyway, we then see that Dexter and Deborah go to a house party together on basically Harry's, like, wishes. He wants Dexter to go out, socialize, so he can hopefully become a normal person, even though we all know that's a losing battle. So we cut to this house party where Dexter obviously doesn't fit in. I felt very relatable to that little moment where I'm like, oh my god, that doesn't look like a place I want to be. Anyway, soon Deborah's friend comes up to Dexter to inform him that someone is trying to take advantage of a drunk or drugged up Deborah upstairs, who Dex promptly viciously beats up and even considers murdering with a knife in front of everybody at the party for a moment, like an idiot. Anyway, I like that Dexter is sort of a mess here though. He's not exactly stable. He doesn't know what he's doing super well. We can see the mix between bloodlust and innocence in a way, so that obviously there's time for him to evolve throughout this season. But it's clear that Dex has good intentions, at least when it comes to his sister, like always. I like that consistency with the original series. Then there's flashbacks within flashbacks of this entirely flashback show, where we get even further insight into Harry's life and Dex as a kid. There was kind of enough of that in the original series, I guess, but it's clear that this is where the series will mainly be focusing between Harry and Dexter. Someone who has never really actually been alive throughout the original series, even though we got to know him so well anyway, which is kind of interesting. He's kind of like the Jigsaw of the Dexter series. Anyway, in this flashback, we see that Harry was kind of an irresponsible father, not watching his other kid, who subsequently drowns in the pool outside. So he has kind of trauma there. This was before he adopts Dexter after his mother's death. Dexter's mother's death, you know. Anyway, the other point of this scene is basically to show that Harry is not a perfect dude. He's kind of pathetic. He's kind of a fuck up in some ways. And I sort of like that, you know. I think it actually adds to his character. We see that he is flawed. He has a history of drinking and bad, unhealthy habits and things like that. Details in which we do have ideas of from the original series, but something that wasn't really heavily explored because we were looking at everything through Dexter's eyes later on in the future past his death, you know. So we can see now in real time that he's not the best guy ever, but throughout the original series we were always sort of seeing everything swept under the rug and being like dramatically romanticized by Dexter. He was looking back on the father that he loved as this perfect, wonderful guy in every single way. He taught him the code, he taught him what was right and wrong. He was a hero to him basically. But we see in little moments like this now with this prequel series that he's not only this heroic character who's absolutely perfect in every single way. He can be kind of a shit bag. There are things to him that aren't perfect, and I do think that that is something to appreciate, because I hate perfect characters. I think that that's very boring. It's why I was always very annoyed. This is so off topic, but let's just get to it. Game of Thrones, you know, like Ned Stark was always like, oh, he's so perfect. He's so fucking perfect. And then there's a moment where you think he cheated on his wife, and you're like, oh my god, a flaw. Oh my god, he's not the perfect man. There are things wrong with him. He is a bit of a dick sometimes. But then it turned out that he was covering for somebody and saving someone or something. I don't remember the details, but basically it was revealed that actually no, he didn't do anything wrong, like seasons later. And I'm like, great. So the one thing that he did do bad wasn't even bad. They redeemed even that. Ah, fuck you. Anyway, so off topic. Anyway, cut to Dexter in present day now. We see him with his classic Michael C. Hall long hair, except here it's either natural or it's a much better wig than the original series, I hate to admit. I kind of wish they just got Michael C. Hall to come in and play the even younger Dexter, like for those scenes. Ah, that would be amazing, but sadly that's not the approach they took here. Anyway, we see see that in this scene, he is hunting with Harry. And when I say hunting, I mean actually hunting, like for animals with guns and stuff. And this whole hunting thing is kind of another hopeful endeavor to try to get Dexter to stop wanting to kill people. But along the way, Dexter announces that animals aren't enough, and then kind of tells us that it's hypocritical for Harry to have taught him the code if he wasn't headed in that direction anyway, and is kind of like disappointed and wants him not to kill. It's like, what was the point of teaching me the code at that point then, you know? Anyway, on this hunting trip though, Harry collapses due to a heart attack and is taken in by the nurse who we see Dexter kill in the original series later on, Nurse Mary. This is the one who has been drugging Harry and basically slowly been killing him. And this is the first kill who Dexter ever kills. But the interesting thing is that we see this all play out in real time this time. Following all this, the episode then becomes about Dexter's hunt for Nurse Mary. He notices the suspicious behavior of the nurse accompanied by Harry's depleting condition for no explained reason. He then goes to research in his school science lab about the drugs and decides to go in for the kill when he confirms that she is doing the wrong thing here, drugging Harry and all that. But not without getting Harry's permission first, who he convinces by revealing the truth about what's going on. Harry agrees very quickly. It's like, all right, yeah, go kill her, it's fine. I have to admit, that part felt a little bit rushed. He's on the brink of death, but he's like, yeah, sweet, kill her, whatever. Anyway, there's then the recreation of the murder itself, him setting up the plastic kill room in her house as she looks for her cat, which is exactly what we saw in the original series, as he's wearing all that plastic wrap and like pulls the hoodie thing over his eyes because he isn't used to like killing people and stuff as he stabs her blindly. And we get a bit of a recreation of that here. To add a little bit more context though, and to make this kill even more interesting, is that he also has to make a personal sacrifice by not attending a sports game that Deborah is playing. I know that that's pretty low stakes stuff. It's like, wow, he didn't make it to a fucking volleyball game. Oh no, his life is ruined. Yeah, it's like, who cares all that much? But it does play into the theme throughout the entire series that killing always does come at a price for Dexter that he eventually pays for with his life, but then it doesn't matter because he's alive. Anyway, once the kill has been made, we see that he disposes of the body by feeding it to alligators in the Floridian swamps, but notably takes her earrings as serial killer trophies, a decision that the future voiceover will describe as something that he later realizes was a mistake. The reason obviously being, I think, that somebody is going to later find them in this season, I'm assuming, which is fun to an extent, playing with that tension. We also know that he's never going to get caught, so that's kind of the problem, like with this and with all prequels, you know, we know where it's going to go. But the kind of circumvention of this problem, however, is that we're also introduced to two new characters, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar and Patrick Dempsey, two cop characters. These are characters who were never in the original series, and that leaves room for potential drama and uncertainty about where their stories are going to end, you know? Is Dexter going to even kill them, maybe? I bet Patrick Dempsey turns out to be a fucking killer and Dexter kills him. Is that where it's going? I hope not. That's dumb. Anyway, that is kind of the clever way of this season, having its cake and eating it too, though, where, you know, we do know where most things are going to play out, but there is some sense of mystery and some things that we don't know. Following his first kill, though, funnily enough, we see Masuka, Batista, and the other cops arriving at his house, but to pay their respects and show support for Harry being in hospital. But more importantly, they also offer him a paid internship at Miami Metro, primarily by Sarah Michelle Gellar's character named Tanya Martin. I wrote that down. And she offers him like $4 an hour, and with that, we're then set up for Dexter going on to do what we already know him to do, but younger this time. And it kind of feeds into this feeling I still already have of prequels, and this one in particular being very unnecessary. And it's things like this that still give me my doubts about it. If he's already headed to his old job that we've already seen him do, if he's already going to be killing people, which we've seen plenty of him doing, and if Harry's already going to be not approving and there's going to be tension that we already know about play out, I don't know, it's just all stuff that we already know. We know Deb's not going to find out. We know Batista, Masuka aren't going to find out, and all these things we already know. And so it does lose a bit of that tension. But I guess the point isn't so much the broad strokes of Dexter's life events and details, but more so the inner details of how things specifically play out. Something that I'm not opposed to being a big fan. I do want to gain those little insights about all the characters. Anyway, the other way this series does seem like it's going to meld the known telling of its origin along with some sense of mystery is that they've set up a new set of murders that Miami Metro are investigating. We don't know much yet, but we know that some children have been killed, and it's obviously like horrific and all that stuff. Like, obviously this is going to be the big earth-shattering sort of end of series killer that Dexter's going to eventually take down at the end of this season, I'm assuming. Anyway, the episode ends here though as Dexter takes Harry back home, admitting what he did with Nurse Mary. Harry is clearly distraught and already somewhat racked with guilt, given that this was really at least partly his doing, which is information we already knew about from the original series, but to see it play out is compelling. And then the following morning in the timeline shows us Dexter arriving at Miami Metro for the first time, closing out with him doing his classic spin on his chair in the lab that he always used to do in the original series, and I'm in love. Is this episode absolutely perfect? No, I wouldn't say that. It still feels unnecessary. It still feels like it's just like, where is it going, you know? And I get that this is just the first episode and it's meant to be kind of mysterious in that way, but it's like this blend of like, it's mysterious, but I also feel like I already know everything. It's kind of frustrating in that way. But yeah, mostly I'm optimistic. I think that the actors are doing a really good job kind of impersonating these characters. I guess that, you know, an impersonation isn't the most like praise you can give an actor, because everybody, like all actors and artists and stuff, want to make it their own, I guess. But with these characters, they feel like the characters that I already know, at least somewhat, and I'm impressed by it, you know. I do think that this version of Dexter himself is promising to be somebody that I like. I like following this character along. It does feel like Dexter. It's hard not seeing Michael C. Hall's face, but it's just something that you have to deal with. You know, realistically, we can't have a prequel and have it be Michael C. Hall again. Like, yeah, I know we all joke about him having the wig and it looking stupid and stuff, but like, you know, obviously that wouldn't actually be good. That would be a dumb decision. So, yeah, I don't know. If they're gonna make it at all, if this has to exist, I think this so far is about as good as they could do it. I'm really curious about whether other people are going to agree with that or not, but so far I don't feel like there's much tangible stuff that you can really complain all that much about. It's just the first episode, so, you know, there's only so much you can say, I guess. So I guess that's about all that I have to say. I'm excited for the rest of this season. I do plan to make videos for each episode if I can. I am in a different state next week. I might miss next week's episode, but after that I plan to do all the others if you're invested in this at all. Something else that I just want to briefly mention, this is more so to my subscribers. If you're new to this channel, this part might not be of interest to you. This is my first upload in about 6 months. I've been going through some hard personal stuff. I may go into slightly more detail in a future video at some point. I don't want to get into everything, but yeah, I'm back. I hope to be permanently back, but it's probably not going to be as consistent as it used to be because I'm miserable and sad in my personal life. So it's hard to put on a happy, enthusiastic face. But if anything was going to bring me back, it was Dexter, and nothing can kill that excitement. So here I am talking about Dexter, and I will be continuing to talk about Dexter. Yeah, so that is all. Please do that things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that shit. And I'm outie. Thank you so much for watching if you watch this. Yeah, it's a bit scary putting out a new video after 6 months of no uploads, you know? So hopefully this isn't a total embarrassment. I'm sorry if I'm a bit rusty and all that shit. I think I am. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, that's all. Thank you. Goodbye.